right, call this meeting to order on, thank you, October 1st at 5:30. We'll start with roll call. Do you do that, or do we just, how do we?
Yeah, we generally just, we can go through.
All right.
Owen Cass.
Here.
Larry Sleeman.
Here.
Linda Young.
Yeah.
Scott.
Here.
Austin. And Rose Bricker will be joining us shortly.
Okay. Public comments. Don't see many public people out there. Approval of minutes. So let's take a look at the August and then the September minutes. So taking a look at the August minutes, any additions or corrections?
I didn't see any. I did read them briefly too.
If there are no, did you say you had to read them?
I have read them.
You have read them. If there are no additions or corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from August 6th.
All right.
Second that.
And this motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes for the August 16th meeting, or August 6th meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, passes unanimously. All right, let's go on to September 3rd. Again, take a look, are there any additions or corrections? I wasn't at that meeting, so I can't make any additions or corrections.
Didn't have it.
And I did read those.
All right,
Okay.
once again, entertain a motion.
I make a motion again to accept the September 3rd minutes.
Okay, motion's been made
Second that motion.
and seconded to approve the minutes for the September 3rd meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed likewise? All right. We got that kind of stuff out of the way. So, look at that, we're at D already. Music in the park. That is the only thing we have on the agenda today. So, how do you want to start on that, Chelsea?
First of all, I will note that my title on the agenda item summary is incorrect. So sorry.
It was
Strategic planning on my agenda item summary.
Oh, yeah.
So we are actually talking about music in the park. So we had talked about this briefly with the last couple meetings. We've had noted that we were going to talk about it in the future, but then I think we've sort of started talking about it. So there might be a few things in the minutes. Hold on, I'm just going to note that Rose joined at 5:34. It's Chris's fault. We knew you were coming. Okay. So we've had a lot of discussion related to music in the park. We have debriefs every year after music in the park. We get going on the process, but we have noted, I think, every year that there are some maybe gaps in the program or things that we could improve on. And this is just an opportunity to stop and look at it and just come up with some brainstorming ideas to suggest for the program. I will say that the school district, the high school jazz band teacher did send an email this week. I guess that was yesterday, to Yvonne and Diane Crocker, and then they got me in the loop, but was saying that the date that we have set currently for 2025 for the schools does not work for them.
Oh.
I wrote back to say that we actually were discussing this today, and that one of the things that I know that we talked about in the last couple meetings was just really figuring out who at the school district or the schools is, who we need to talk to, and that we need to maybe talk to them, maybe like a staff member and a park board member, just to have a conversation, maybe even Counselor Crocker, just trying to have a conversation and showing that the city does support this. Park board supports it, the council supports it, but we do realize that it hasn't been functioning maybe as well as it once did. I think there's just a lot more conflicts in place for these bands. That's kind of their competition season. And I just think it's been very difficult for them to commit, and especially to maybe to the fact that we say, oh, we're just adding it in with our normal, we start our concert series on the third Thursday of May. And I think that that's been some of it, is that it's been challenging for them to be that the third Thursday in May is the date.
The first couple of years, it seems to me, we had a nice big group up there playing. And I can't remember now if it was the same date in May, I mean, relatively speaking. But they seem to manage at that time. But I have a feeling that the group of musicians is a lot smaller than it was. I may be wrong about that, but I think that that's the case.
Yeah.
And I know that they get together and make a schedule or calendar for the entire year. And
Yes.
and I think I've talked to some of you at the Music in the Park that I'm kind of for just saying, okay, you tell us then when you want to do it, and then we'll schedule it as our kind of kickoff. And I don't know how the rest of you feel about that.
Well, and I think that that has happened several times. Like before I got here, I think that there was a conflict, and that the park board said, well, what works for you, and had a different date. I think part of the problem is, well, we have several things to discuss. One thing is, we'll get to this, but at the end of the packet, I did some research about what other communities do. No one starts in May.
No,
Most places don't even start in June. We know why.
I
And-
remember standing out there freezing.
Yes.
But the other thing is that second concert is on the same weekend as Memorial Day.
Right. Yep.
So,
Everybody's around.
Yeah.
That's why,
So, if I think just brainstorming ideas, should we still have it in the park in May? Should we try to coordinate better with the school district to have a Philomath Performing Arts Benefit Fund, Park Advisory Board supported event that's held at one of the schools? Like, what things can we do to just make it more successful and make it, it has to be something that is fun and enjoyable for the schools, and is also not overtaxing teachers who are already at the end of the school year and have a ton going on. So I think those are conversations. I think just getting the input from them, sharing some of these potential ideas, but just listening to them would be a really good place for us to start.
And it seems to me once school ends, which seems to be in at least the 15th of June, you can't count on the whole band or orchestra or whatever being around.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
just
And the
what it is.
teachers aren't, they're not getting paid at that point. They're on their break. And so I think what I would suggest is that either, I know Yvonne has some pretty good contacts with the school, so she might, and she also has the history with the Performing Arts Benefit Fund, but she might be a good park board member. Well, we can volunteer her while she's not here. And then maybe I could just talk to her and see if she's comfortable having those meetings. If she's not, maybe we'll bring it back and say, is there someone else here who wants to have the conversations? But she really has done most of the coordinating with them the last few years for the events. And then, like I said, Diane Cracker also has kind of expressed interest in trying to make it happen. So that's something that I can try to arrange if you all think that might be a good idea.
and I hadn't really thought about the issue of having it at one of their venues. Because that's also a big deal,
I know.
to haul
It is.
all of that equipment there
Yeah.
to the park.
Yeah, so I don't know.
maybe just have a kickoff at the high school or middle school or
Sure.
whatever. And it doesn't have to be the full bands. I mean,
Right.
the jazz bands usually, put on a pretty good show.
Yeah.
So,
I just like to get their feedback, yeah.
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 No, I think I like that idea.
Okay,
And it might work better for the school to fit it in like that, you know?
yeah,
Well, and then give them, some ownership to it by saying, okay, then tell us when you
Yeah,
can do this.
absolutely.
And I think one year we had, they had a part of the play that
Yes,
Yeah.
the
and
middle school.
if that's part of it,
It's
that's
down.
fine too.
absolutely.
We're talking about the, what is it?
Performing arts
Performing
benefit
arts,
fund goes
thank
for
you.
all of those, yeah.
Right, so, that would be good. And Yvonne has been working with that. If she wants some help, I can help her on it.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you definitely also have
Will the high
connections.
school have like a showcase, like a spring showcase or anything where there's soloists?
I know that was one of the issues, I think, this last year, is I wanna say that they'd just had an event where,
Yeah.
like the
Oh,
night
about they just
before.
Oh,
So,
They have contests and then they have, each school has their own concert,
Yeah.
end of the year concert.
Okay.
And I think that's the issue as far as trying to schedule everything.
Sure.
It certainly is around Christmas time.
yeah.
Sure.
Same kind of thing.
I was just thinking it might be easier to coordinate with a soloist than with an entire band.
right,
If that
Right.
is an alternative.
yeah,
Maybe they wanted to showcase like seniors, juniors, and seniors.
Well, and that's why I say that let's,
Yeah.
give them
get some
the
feedback from them.
opportunity to
Right.
say, maybe you're right, this year it's a soloist, maybe, let's bring in some of the actors from the play and do a short thing, or the jazz band, because those are usually smaller.
They are now, they used to be bigger, but now they're.
Yeah,
they seem to
and
be
they're,
smaller,
and
yeah.
they're good.
Encompassing of performing arts. Band.
And I think, yeah, the very first thing is to connect with the school and find out when it's gonna work for them, because trying to manipulate them to get to our schedule and seem to be.
I just think it's been difficult, and I think that it's maybe not, I can imagine if I'm already stressed out, and now I have to add that thing in because the community does it every year, and what do I do? And I just think it's a good time to have a conversation, because we don't want to be making assumptions about what works for them or what they can or can't be involved in, and I think we've had good coordination with some of them, but we know there's been a little bit of a breakdown in that, so I think this is a good place to start, and who knows? And it could be a great event regardless of where it is. We can still promote music in the park, say it's coming up in the summer. I mean, we can definitely keep this as a music in the park centric type of event that we're like helping.
And I think one of the things about our meetings is to discover what works best and what doesn't work so well with our music in the park. And maybe the very first concert is still too chilly to be there,
Yeah.
But
It'll be just good feedback, yeah.
we could make some blow up photographs of the park around that.
There you go.
Well, and then another thought would be, because I think they all have end of the year concerts, maybe we, as a park board, just go in and say, okay,
Go to the
we
concert.
want 5 minutes
Yeah.
of your concert. Just, you don't have to set up
Sure.
special or whatever, and we just spread it out over 3 or 4 nights.
Maybe we just rotate, like 1 year it's the high school, 1 year it's the middle school,
So
1
something
year it's
like that.
elementary. Yeah.
That might be.
That idea.
Sure.
If it's already happening, then
Right.
we just join in on what's already
Yeah.
happening.
Right. But getting back to what you were talking about, Lindy, we kind of have to make that decision. Or do we want to just say, we're not going to do music in the park during May?
Right.
You mean in the park, yeah.
What did I say?
No, that's what you
Yeah.
said, but I mean like the venue in the park.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully in the school somewhere.
And looking at, did you send out a questionnaire to all these people, or how did you
I
come up with all this?
Coordinated with them.
Okay. Good information. I mean, we can see where, well, I don't know if we're in the middle, we're kind of high, I guess, as far as the number.
For both? For Silverton?
No, Silverton, it
Yeah.
looks like.
They have music every Monday for late June through late
They have a
August.
nonprofit that's doing that.
They have a nonprofit. Yep.
Somebody, yeah, and that was the other thing I was looking at. There was only
Mm-hmm.
3 that say cities were doing it, but we're not really
That's where
big
you work
enough to
before.
have a
Mm-hmm.
Parks and Rec department. Like
Yeah, some of them
the
are
other
a
ones
little bit larger, and they have a Parks and Rec district, which is not city, but it's still kind of.
Right.
But yeah, there aren't many, the smaller cities are doing it, right? Harrisburg, Brookings, they're doing it because that's who is there to do it.
But well, Harrisburg says they do it weekly, so they just kind of shorten it down.
It's just short, right? They just only do it.
They do
I
it
think it
more
was
often
like,
later in the year.
yeah, I want to say theirs was like 5 or 6 weeks. It looks like 6. They have 6 concerts. Mostly why, well, let's come back to that. Let's stay on our trajectory of questions here. Okay. My second bullet point was how to provide consistent volunteer help during the year. So, I don't have a whole lot of ideas. We're working on this volunteer program here, so another way that potentially we have a need for volunteers, which might move that project up my priority list if I were able to think that I could get volunteers to take things off of my plate, because I'll swap it. But I think, like Rose, when you were not quite as involved in so many things, you were really doing a lot of this, like during the year, things that need to be done. You are one person and doing a lot of things in camp, but I did provide this overview, kind of a calendar of things that are done during the year. And just so that we have that and can visually see what's kind of going on during the year. I would say the most, well, they're all kind of time consuming, but I would say what feels the most time consuming is the band selection process is really extensive. Just the applications, organizing all of that information, bringing it here, having those discussions, communicating with we've gotten so many more people interested, which is great. But the more people you get, the more people you're keeping track of and trying to keep in touch with, and they're asking questions. And so that's quite a bit of back and forth during that time period. And just this last year, I did contracts with them. That was the first time that I had done something like that with them. Some of them, I mean, that's something that the city is probably still going to have to do because, like, our contracts. So some of them, we had some negotiations with a couple of them, but it went pretty fine. And I think they're used to that. Most bands that play anywhere are used to signing some sort of an agreement with the venue. I contact the library and communicate back and forth with them on dates, food vendors, and then the marketing materials is kind of the next. So it's making up the marketing materials, keeping those updated as we're getting bands confirmed or as the band goes away, and you have to keep those updated. So that can be quite a bit of work too. And depending on what we're doing, this last year, we didn't end up putting up the banners. Public Works was really overtaxed. Mm-hmm. We were overtaxed. We got it on the reader board. We got our materials out the best we could. But everything didn't get done because the program has just grown and it's just been taking more time. So we have to communicate with Public Works about dates, key codes, electricity. There's a lot of, we do all of that. And then during the concert season, there's email with the band. So I email the bands before each concert and coordinate with them, make sure they know where everything is. They know who to contact. And then of course the members who are there doing the same thing. And then we kind of end, we reach out to the schools in September. So we're already starting for the next year in September. We end. Payments are being made here. I have to coordinate all this so that I make sure everybody gets paid on time. And then we kind of, again, debriefing and planning for the next year, talking about sponsorships, that some of the sponsors like Pioneer, they needs to know that like before the end of this year. So they can confirm that for their budget. And then we opened the applications this last process in December.
Oh, we did, so we did open them that early.
Yeah. So as you can see, it's kind of a whirlwind of a lot of, it's a lot of work. It's turned into a big animal. I think the difficult thing for us as staff is it's a whole entire program. And I think before, I think there were more people that were interested in starting it. So it was very new and there was quite a bit of buy-in on getting it going. And it wasn't this big.
Yeah. And we only did once a week.
Right. It wasn't this big. It wasn't as many concerts. There were like, at the beginning, I think there were just like 4 a summer, like 4 concerts a summer. I looked back on some of the concert lists. So it was just less. We weren't going out. It was like, oh, hey, there's a couple bands we know of. Let's see if they want to play. So it was just, it's grown, and it's really great that it's grown. I think it's great for our community. I don't think anyone wants it to decrease again. I think we want it to continue to grow. But that being said, what are the brainstorming ideas for keeping it functioning? Because this last summer, what we saw really was Lindy kind of hauled a lot of it on her own. And so,
She did a fine job.
and she did a great job.
I mean,
Yeah, but you know, I think it's just important for us to figure out ways to have a more consistent. And if people here are feeling like this is like too much, or I didn't get on the park board to do this, that's fine. We just need to kind of get it out so that we know we need to look at other options and figure out some other ways that we can kind of keep it functioning.
maybe we need more park board members.
Yeah, and I mean, I think some of this, it's like spreading it out. Some of it's hard to spread out because when you talk about like marketing for a city function, generally the staff does that because it's marketing for a city function. But there are things, I mean, we could definitely turn over the band, coordinating with some of the things with the bands, or, you know, I think there are things during the year that we could pass along, but definitely like during the concert season, it would be nice to have more volunteers to be able to like kind of take on the concerts and have them function.
And I know Rose did a lot of work anytime this year. Seems like you'd be quite involved with.
Well, I think it's not sustainable for one person to be like the go-to. And neither you or me or Chelsea should be the one person to do it.
So what about asking the city for some additional support money?
What would we do with the support money?
Maybe some extra time for an employee to do some of the things that have to be done.
I think the problem is there is not an employee that it makes sense to have do that. I mean, that's part of it. We don't have a say a public works and parks department that just has that stellar employee that's like could just take on this. So I end up kind of the person, or Chris ends up, both of us, the people that do those functions because we have kind of a background in doing that. I mean, we do have someone at Public Works that potentially, I don't know that that person is wanting to work any more hours. I don't know if there's any capacity there, but we do have someone there that potentially could help with some of this. I think she has some skills that could potentially help, so that might be a possibility.
Not forming like a work group or a subcommittee for music in the park.
Yeah, or even just, maybe. I mean, but again,
Small group of people.
yeah, is it reaching out? I mean, we've tried to do it function to do that here, and we did form a little subcommittee. And I think that there's some things that are being done by the subcommittee, but again, I think it's just too much.
Sure.
And I think what we need is some people who want to do this. You know, since you brought up Silverton, that organization was just a bunch of people who love music, former choir people, band people,
Separate from city.
live in the community, and they decided they really wanted to start a sort of like the Performing Arts Benefit Fund, but they're not fully the same function. They're also trying to do events and things in the community. And then they started like a children's choir because there wasn't choir for all of the children. So they did things like that. And then they started this, but they have a group of very, very dedicated, there aren't that many of them and I don't know how they do it. But they have a group of very, very dedicated people who that's what they want to do. They want to put on this summer concert series and that is like their thing. Do we need to try to find people who want to do that? I don't know how we find those people, but there have to be people here that would,
Well,
Be really
Yvonne's
into
super
that.
tapped into like the music community. I
Yeah.
wonder if she's got a group that
maybe,
would want to
or just people that want to
be in it.
join in.
There are people who go frequently and who enjoy going. Maybe somebody in some of those groups might be interested in helping out. Some of them have been retired a long time, let's put it that way. They may or may not want to do something like that. But I think personally, I think we must continue with it.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who look forward to the music in the park. Even though they don't always come, but then maybe they do. And we've had some pretty good attendance this summer. And hopefully more people will find out about it and come too,
Yeah.
But this wouldn't. Okay. When coordinating with these other cities, did you get much feedback on how they kind of divvy out the tasks and roles and responsibilities?
I didn't get really specific with them. A lot of this is just available on their sites. But I did, there are a number of them who have, well, like the parks and rec districts, they often have staff members who are doing those recreational types, so they pay them.
Yeah.
So some of them do have some paid staff that go, but their positions lend themselves to that. So it's not like, hey, public works utility worker, why don't you go pick up a mic? And so so that's part of the issue, is that we don't necessarily have that going on. So that's a little bit of it. And then volunteers, a lot of them said that they function with not like a park board necessarily, but volunteers that are volunteering for
those venues.
for their concert series. So just like, when you go to the fall festival and you've got the people that come and they put the shirts on and they come volunteer at that, probably every year. Another idea I will say that Tanya at Pioneer had at one point along the way, it was a couple years ago, but I'd mentioned this, is allowing the sponsors to kind of adopt a concert. So like you're a sponsor, you can have your table at this concert, you will kind of staff it. So we'll give them a list of here's who to call if something happens, here's what you do, just like you get, and you can go up there and say thanks for joining, and I want to tell you, a minute or 2 minutes about Pioneer and the sponsorship. Tanya didn't like volunteer that Pioneer would do that, but had said that that's something that she had seen before. Like they have attended events where that's so.
That's a good idea.
That's a possibility.
Look, who are our main sponsors? Pioneer and
They vary. Pioneer's been our stable sponsor.
Dirt Road.
Dirt Road was this last year. They've been
2 years ago.
They did a band sponsorship of some sort for a specific band at one point, I think.
okay.
But then they did provide a sponsorship. We've had Figaro's. We've had
Okay.
Strengthening Rural Families has been doing that for a couple of years. They're probably like, we need volunteers to come work for our events. But there may be, that may be a possibility. Just
Do we ever get anybody from Figaro's coming to listen?
I don't know.
I was gonna ask, is there anything students like who are in these bands or groups could do to help out?
We've talked about that, and it's extremely difficult during the summer to get kids tapped into anything because they're not going to like a weekly thing where
Does PYAC
coordination.
have a music performing arts program? Do they? I'm assuming they have a summer program.
I don't know.
Where?
PYAC.
I don't know.
Having a
how
summer
much music
program?
They do at all,
We have
actually.
summer programs, but I don't think
Yeah.
anything specifically.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they're really involved with a lot of music.
I don't know if
I'm
they're-
not sure
yeah.
about much of
Very
it.
sports centric.
Jubilate,
Uh-huh.
it's spelled as jubilate. Jubilate is a local singing group.
But are they singing in the summer?
I know that I went to a concert this summer.
Because I think they just started up again, Yvonne told me.
I'm just I'm thinking of musical champions who want to see this in our community,
Right.
and I think
Right.
the makeup of that group, people might be interested.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe continuing with that idea from Pioneer is just to solicit help from people that, you know, want to help, a volunteer that take one performance. Can you be at one of these performances to help out? And see if we can get something from that. Because I mean, we all kind of knew when we got on the park board that well, there's this music in the park thing. We didn't know that it was going to be
A big animal that it is. Yeah.
a full-time responsibility.
Well,
And so I think, you know, maybe asking for that, you know, kind of like we talked about with the volunteers in the parks where you sponsor a park. Well, this would be not sponsoring, but just I'll help at that July 25th concert or whatever it is. And I don't know if we get any help, anybody to say yes or not.
So how would you approach businesses, I guess, in the area to do that? You know,
And I was just thinking of just anybody, you know,
Okay.
I mean, you actually have both things. You have the idea of the sponsor doing it, or you just have the idea of a volunteer saying, I want to help out and I'll help out on that day. Just, you know, but you still need somebody in charge
yeah.
each time. So I don't know.
And the advantage would be you'd only need to do it once. Or something.
I like the idea of the adopt a concert because it kind of lines up with adopt a park, adopt a highway. And then it's a perk for the businesses because they'd be able to have a booth or a table, be able to speak. So I think the rewards or the benefits.
So would,
Let them pick the band though?
No,
no.
but they get to announce the band, talk about their business.
It would be an advertising opportunity.
Exactly,
Right.
and they get their name on the flyer or the.
would you require them to sponsor it financially also?
Yeah, that's like the whole.
Yeah, they would be.
That would probably be a good idea.
A
Because
sponsor.
then they're really representing their business, whatever it is.
Really owning the concert.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
your-
true.
Yeah, it's a good thing to look
That
at.
might be something to try this year.
I know some businesses have like employee resource groups, like the clubs, that sort of thing.
Chelsea, do you go to the Chamber Commerce
Yeah.
luncheon or whatever? Would that be a place to?
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Once we kind of formalize it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's an option. I mean, I think being there to attend at the concert to try to run the concert is one thing. Generally, it's not. The primary things that right now are functions of going to the concert is trying to get there early to make sure that everyone got into where they need to get in. Making sure the band seems like they're good, even though they've received an email. But just make sure everyone's good. But then it's the speaking. No one ever wants to do speaking.
Everybody else jumps in.
Yeah, Lindy's.
Well, and we had Counselor McMorrin. who
Yes.
One time got.
Yes.
He was voluntold to do it.
Yeah.
I was like, here you go, you're doing this.
And he doesn't.
He was fine.
What if the
But-
park board invited city councilors?
Maybe a counselor could come to-
counselor
yeah.
concert.
Yeah,
And I was thinking
Yeah.
about it because they've been doing that
Right.
with the tent and,
Yeah.
you know, come and meet
They
the
want to be
council.
visible.
Yeah.
More engaged in the community.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
yeah.
The counselors.
Although I do think they kind of talked about not doing music in the park next year, just focusing on farmers market. However,
You mean being
this
represented.
might be a different way for them to do something that's not taking the whole tent down and doing the
Yeah, they don't,
session.
Open talk.
Like that might not be worth it because it's a lot of effort to set that up, but doing this might be,
they can just come and.
that's a good idea. I like that.
Next year's not an election year, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be an idea. Yeah, because I think that's part of it is just, it's the speaking. That's not for everyone. But generally, and then the other thing, the other component to this, which we've talked a lot about, is the Performing Arts Benefit Fund collection of donations. We have streamlined that a lot since I've gotten here. Kay McGee
She helps a lot.
has done a great job to come and has done a lot. So I think this year it felt like that was less of a lift for the park board. And I really think, I mean, you were doing some of that too with her, but I do think that she has been trying to help and recognize that we want to be a place and a venue for this to happen, but we do need some help because we don't always consistently have people there to do it, and we have some financial things. So, yeah, I think, and then as far as during the year, the things that happen, you know, I think like looking at that public works option, that staff member there, might be a person internally that I can see if she has any capacity to help.
I mean, the other thing, you've gone through here and kind of enumerated things that need to be done. I mean, the other thing we could do is as a park board, say, okay, I'm willing to do this.
Right.
Or I'm willing to do that. Not everything, but just a
Sure.
specific thing that people would be
Yeah.
interested, or if it has anything to do with technology, probably I'm not in.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a good plan B. I think having a one central person, if we can tap into one central person, then they're the hub and they can divvy out responsibilities.
Right. Well, I think the struggle for me in particular is when I took this, Chris had been doing it and he passed it to me and he said, great, I'm the city manager. Here you go. You can do this. And then my job got really big and my projects got really big. And now it's like, okay, where's the next person that's trickling down that can handle some of these tasks? Because they do, in the scope of my job, my overall job and day to day when these things are going on, it is very difficult for me to, I've been doing pretty well at it. This last year was the first year that I really felt I'm not getting the email out to people. I'm not responding to band members as frequently as I should be. And so it really needs to be able to trickle to someone, probably a staff member because we have the email and all that, but it needs to be able to trickle to someone who can kind of coordinate those things and just, it makes more sense for them too. So I'll look at some options for that, see what we have and what things make sense to potentially ask you all if you can help with. Handing out flyers, Rose used to pretty much exclusively do that. Yvonne has helped too. I think that's gone pretty well. This last year was probably it was more difficult this last year. So those are the types of things as a park board, when I ask for that help, I really need that help. Like from all of you, if you're going, I'm going to go to Dirt Road this weekend, cool, tell Chelsea you want to stop by and get some flyers. If I have to, I'll send someone, Public Works, to your house to drop off some flyers for you. We'll make it work, but just, those are the little things that seem like a little thing, but they're a lot when they're all added up together.
Designing flyers, do you usually do that, or somebody from the
I've been
city?
doing that, yeah, and
Okay.
primarily because a lot of things change,
Right.
and they're constantly coming in. Like, oh, the library actually can't do that date. Oh, so there's a lot of changes that are happening kind of continually to get that ready and get it out. Sometimes we've had revisions even after, like, we got a new sponsor. So that probably makes sense. But again, this other staff member does have some design skills, so that might be something that I could get a little bit of help with. We have a couple people internally that have design skills, so depending on what their workload
One
is.
thing I don't see on the calendar, I see the sponsorship drive begins. When
Yeah.
does the sponsorship drive end?
Never.
We're just constantly trying to, or like a deadline to get, so they can get on the flyer and they can get on
there's
everything
a
that we're
deadline to
promising
get
them.
on the flyer, and I think we've been kind of finalizing the flyer in April. We've been, And again, if our calendar changes, this could shift, but I think we've been trying to finalize it in April and start distributing it by the end of April. So if you wanted to be on the flyer, it would be by then. But we've had people, I think Dirt Road, I'm not sure when they came in, but we've had people
They
come in
came
late.
Yeah.
And then we just try to
Mhm.
mention them as we can and, you know, put them on the website as one of the sponsors. And this year I did have, one of our staff members help me, which usually I was doing all the social media posts. But I really wanted to increase that this year and make sure we were thanking sponsors and it was scheduled and consistent. And so I did ask one of the staff members to do that this year. And she had all those things out. So that was great. We
That's really
thanked
nice.
all of our sponsors. We had all the concerts on there. So that was something that I did pass on. Yeah, but I think by mid-April for sure.
So what I'm hearing you say is that it should be a city person that is like the person. But
Probably.
if it remains you,
Mhm.
you need that support. You need that
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
for band coordination and sponsorship coordination, or for showing up at the events. Like, what specifically do you need off your plate?
Showing up at the events, definitely. We should talk about events and when they are and how they're occurring. We're going to talk about that here. But showing up at events, we have some coordination things that happen, and that's been part of, I think, some of the drawback is we've got the sandwich board. Now we have the little sound system, which works great, but those are things that, you know, we need to figure out how that functions. Generally, I've been trying to take those down on weeknights.
Oh, okay, ahead of time.
On Thursdays, I take them there. But I'm looking for there to be someone that's there that can bring them back or can, you know. So that's something.
So is that sandwich board in this building?
Yes, it's right there.
Okay, for some reason I thought Kay was bringing that.
Kay had it for
Okay.
a little bit. She borrowed it, I think, for something. So she did have it, and she really did try to help out. She kept the jug this year, and she just kind of kept that and kept it in circulation. So I think logistically, that's been a thing too. Is that there are required things that you need to get there and transport and return, and that's probably been the biggest hang up. Last year, we had a better showing of people coming to help volunteer, but we did not have people that wanted to deal with the board or the, we didn't have PA system. We did. We had the big one, which we just kind of weren't using because it's giant and hard to move. So that's a thing too, is just thinking about, you know, and is the suggestion that this absolutely isn't working, and do we need staff to do that? And then internally, maybe we need to have a conversation, you know, because obviously I'm exempt. I'm paid the same whether I work 80 hours or 40. However, like, you know, Chris and I can we can only take on like so many of those extra things. So does it make sense to have, you know, a public works employee help on the week? You know, is it worth it to us as
And
a
I've
city?
asked this before as far as storage, like at the,
Yeah, there's
there,
nowhere.
you know, that would make it real easy if we just had a closet there
Yep.
to put the sign and the sound system,
Yeah.
but there's nothing
No.
there.
Yeah,
So,
But one of those cabinets can't lock.
they are full of tables and chairs.
I meant the one that has a sink on the other side.
Yeah, I would not be comfortable putting this down. It was very expensive. So I would not.
Does
And
the sound system need to be charged?
yes,
So where, does that come back to this building then? Oh, I see.
yeah.
Well, I have to say, Kay was there for, as far as I can tell, just about
I think every concert.
She brings the jug, she takes it away, she takes the money away, she's responsible
yeah,
for
no,
it.
that's,
Yeah.
And nobody on the board needs to do that, and I'm very thankful.
Yeah, that went really well this year. She appreciates someone walking around with her, I think, to kind of help her ask people. But
Shake the jug at people.
yeah, I think that went really well. She really heard us when we said we need more participation. We'd like people to know who this is. Who is this that we're gathering money for? And she did a great job. So yeah, I think we're just brainstorming, and I think next would be like trying to let us as staff kind of figure out from this brainstorm some ideas for out of this, you know, on how we can make it better.
But I mean, looking at your
Functioning.
calendar here, you know, sponsorship drive begins next month. Do we need to make a decision as far as if we're gonna do the sponsor a concert thing? Or,
I don't think so. I mean, generally, this is communicating with Pioneer, who's been the series sponsor for a number of years. So I reach out to them. And then I reach out to the other, whoever had also been sponsors this year, although we have some too that from last year. And so reach out to them. That's pretty easy. I mean, you know, whatever you want to do. In the past, I've drafted a letter so that people could give it to a business. You know, we had kind of a program one year where we said, here's what you get if you're a sponsor. So I don't, you know, not necessarily. The sponsorship drive begins is not a hard, like, we're having a sponsorship drive. It's just that's when I typically start my process of making sure I reach out to Pioneer. But we really do spend the next several months kind of having that conversation. And
well, I'm just trying to, we're
Yeah.
brainstorming now,
Yeah.
but we're gonna have to start making decisions.
right. But some of that's going to be internal with staff, so that's part of it. I mean,
That's like the first step.
Yeah.
and
I don't-
You don't mind doing that.
this part, not currently. I have asked the park board to find other sponsors. You know, we do have talked about before, we have kind of the theory is that we're breaking even and we're getting revenue for sponsorships that's the same as what we're expending. We did budget more this year, this fiscal year, so I think we had asked to budget for $300 for our band, so I thought we got that in there. So we'll want to try to find additional sponsors or increase the sponsorship amounts. So we can talk about that next month, like our sponsorships. But, you know, I think that could definitely be an idea. You know, I'd like to reach out to Pioneer first. They do substantially cover this program, and so I'd like to reach out to them and see if they're still interested. If they have ideas about that, if that's something that they want to do, and just give them kind of the first look at that. So I'll reach out to them and bring that back next month.
Now it says,
I was gonna say, do you think they would have any issue with, you know, having less concerts in the summer, or is that gonna
Pioneer?
bother them?
No,
If we
it
make
would.
that decision after they, you know, commit to being.
Oh, I don't know that I mean, it's hard to say. I don't know I think that they are community supporters and that I think they would support it either way. The financial ask that we ask them is helping to cover a bulk of the program. Maybe our financial ask would go down if our program were not gonna cost as much. So, you know,
you discussed, talk about not doing concerts in May and just doing June, July, and August. Do we need to make a motion on that specifically, or a head nod, or?
well, we haven't, I don't feel like we've really discussed that aspect yet.
Okay.
What do you all think about that? This is really, I don't know that I'm looking for motions. I'm just looking for feedback from y'all. I don't think we're ready to make
I'm just,
yes.
I'm looking at this and it says confirm dates with park.
Yep,
So
Yep.
in order to do that, we have to know
Right.
how many we're gonna have.
right. But
That's,
I think that we're not ready to make that decision. I think the park, that we may have some dates that are conflicting, but I can look at that with the park.
I think it makes a lot of sense to have
I agree.
park board advertise music at the park at the existing concerts that are already happening. So there's less coordination. Doesn't have to be at the parks. We don't have to worry about weather.
For the schools.
And just go to the schools.
Yeah.
And not have a concert in May, a music in the park concert in May. It's just a promotion kind of month.
yeah,
If we coordinate with the school and use that as the first concert in May,
Yes.
so then we would essentially be having it from May to the end of August. But the first one is just not in the park, but it's
Yeah.
still under the auspices of, or we will be there.
I don't think it's a music in the park event, it just is the park board.
I think opportunity to
Hey,
advertise
this
Advertise.
about,
You'll get this and that.
yeah.
Sure.
Because also the people who are being benefited by the reason why we do the concert
Yeah.
are all gonna be there.
Absolutely.
Well, and even if we don't go to all of the school's concerts, maybe we have those little quarter sheets that have the listing of the music in the park. Because people are going to those concerts because their kids are there and they're interested in music. So having that available to them at least in May or whenever they have their final concerts, then that would get that information out to people.
I wonder if they have a program at the event, like
Oh,
at
yeah, I'm sure
concerts.
they do.
You could get in that program.
Yeah.
And by that time, we would have our programs for the summit organized, wouldn't we? So
Yeah.
we could promote those there too.
Yeah, so what do you all think about, so I've given you this list. We saw no one starts in May. Most of the people that start in June are late June. There was no one that started early June. They were all like either the second week or later in June.
Is that because of the weather?
Yeah.
Third
Yep.
Thursday is pretty late in the month.
Yeah, true, which is what that would be our first.
Yeah, I mean, and that's,
in the park.
has that worked out well for us, the Thursday and Sunday?
Didn't
Well,
work-
that's
didn't
the
work?
other discussion I'd really like to have.
Okay.
So the way that our concerts occur now, they're 10 days apart.
Correct.
So we have boom, boom, nothing.
Yeah.
And I know the reason why. It was because when the scheduling happened for this event, they were trying to make one concert, one date on a weekend, so people could go on a weekend, one date on a weekday, and they were trying to, there are other activities and things that you would have to consider, but I think the park board meeting for one was on like the second Thursday or something, so that was one conflict, so, I think there's potential to maybe spread that out a little more, because I do think it's also a tax on people who are like, didn't I just go to one of these? And it's summer, so I think that that's kind of feedback that I've gotten.
And what about weekdays versus weekend? Have you got any feedback on that? Has
Attendance on
anybody-
Thursday.
Huh?
Well, we've had it on Thursdays.
You think we have better attendance on Thursday than we do on Sundays?
That's hard to say. This last year, I would say it was pretty comparable. Just briefly thinking of the numbers,
Yeah, and I think it's more the band that's playing than the day of the week,
It does make a difference.
because
yeah.
they have their following and so on. Or
As in the last one that we had. Yes.
Yeah, I think I think people here have kind of gotten in sync with it. You can see most people just do it on a day. They picked a day. Let's
Right.
pick a day. That's when our concerts are. Lake Oswego is different because they have different locations. But at X Park, all of the concerts on Wednesday. At B Park, all of the concerts on Sunday. So they do keep them, I guess, straight. So, we don't have to be like everyone else. We can do this if we think that's still functioning. Sundays are really hit or miss for people just because it is summer and they're busy. I mean, I think Sunday late afternoon, early evening is, for some people, it's a no, right? Like I just got back from camping all weekend, forget it. For some people, it's like, great, let's go do this because we're not busy running around doing our errands. I don't know. I think the year before our Sunday attendance was less when Dale was still counting. Definitely less dogs.
When we started on the Sundays, yeah. I think you're right.
So I think it was less. I think this year was a little bit more attendance. So most concerts in most of these places are just weekdays, but some of them are on a weekend.
Well, if we have it twice a week, it probably would be, twice a month. It probably would be a good idea to keep one on the Sunday and one during the week sometime.
Like offering a weekday and a weekend.
Yeah.
Although I do see the value in the during the week. I mean, it's during the summertime.
Okay.
I don't know
Let
about,
me- Let me look at what that second Thursday looks like, or it doesn't have to be a Thursday. I can look and see like Wednesday, Thursday.
It's the second week in June, you're hitting up against graduations and Father's Day.
Sure.
June's hard.
Yeah.
Tried to plan an event.
That would be,
Well, I think we can keep that last Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like it's been pretty well, except for Memorial Day.
yeah.
And then
But
let me see if
maybe-
I can find the second week of the month,
Second,
I mean,
Thursday.
either Wednesday,
Maybe
Thursday.
even only one concert in June, near the end of the month, where the weather's better,
Sure.
outside of graduation season.
Like the last Sunday.
Graduation would be around about the second week. Wouldn't it?
Right.
I see what you mean.
But I got really used to having those 10 days apart, cause then I could always figure out.
Me too.
Now that you
Well, it's on the
figured it out,
All about the concerts too, to be like, it's on the third Thursday, this is
Yeah.
the last Sun, like,
Yeah.
da-da-da, and this is the same kind of.
But it could be the second and fourth Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd have to look and see if there was a fifth Thursday somewhere in there.
Yeah, even like the second Thursday and the fourth Sunday, or, yeah, let me just look, let me look out on a calendar a little bit and just make sure there's not something community related that happens.
Yes.
A lot of people go every second Wednesday of the month, we don't wanna conflict with
Yeah,
that.
you'd have to look at Frolic too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
welcome
Tuesday.
to my world, Larry. So yes, so let's look at that, and I'll bring something back next month, because that is something that we do need to like, let's look at this and make a formal recommendation on, this is how we
Yeah.
think that we should go
Well,
forward.
that's an interesting point. I'm gonna ask some of the people I know that go there on a regular basis if the weekday and Sunday,
Okay.
if that makes a difference.
And there's
I think it's,
people I could ask too.
yeah, I think it's just a matter of
I think it's
reminding,
who it is.
Maybe they don't.
reminding
Yeah.
people.
I think like for my family, going on the weekdays is so much easier.
Yeah.
Than the weekend. Like I find like weekends are hard
It
for
was a
us.
struggle for me to make the Sunday ones.
Yeah, it's very hard, just
Prepping
even
for
though
work the next day.
prepping for work, you're done at 8 o'clock and you're,
Preparing myself.
yeah, like, I don't know about you all, but I'm usually like hanging out in my backyard
Sundays
before 8 o'clock on Sunday.
now are really nice, cause I
Yeah.
don't have to think about.
So if you're just asking people who are. Yeah. So that's good. So I think some direction there. I think the times are good. I don't have an issue. I think people
Yeah.
like those for the heat.
Right, and otherwise it gets too late in the evening.
Yeah. Although, you know, I think that that our start time is 6 p.m. and that I've been letting bands know.
Mhm.
We generally like you to play 2 hours, but there are some bands that are smaller that's a lot for them, and I don't personally have an issue as long as they're not quitting after an hour. But if
Right.
they,
Yes.
an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, I don't think we're super firm on that, because I do think it's a little difficult for some of the bands, but they hopefully are shooting for about 2 hours. Okay.
The only thing, one thing to consider, if we do Thursday and Thursday, is that who's providing food? Cause I know, Mud Oven kind of connects onto,
The farmer's market.
Sunday market.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't maybe work as well for them.
Is
I
that
think we
working
like-
for them? To like do
I-
a market and do.
I'll check in with them. I
Seems like a
think it
lot.
was, I
Okay.
think it seems like a lot, like physically, but they did say it's a lot easier on them because they don't have to get the oven
Yeah.
stoked till it's hot again.
Yeah.
Apparently that's a lot of the work.
Sure.
So for them,
I
mean,
still
I'll
think,
check in with them.
do you think we should not continue with the Sunday then?
No, I think it's still definitely an option. I think that it does give two different options for people.
I'm just,
Yeah.
as we're kind of
Yeah.
brainstorming,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we consider all of the factors. Sunday's fine with me.
Well, I just wondered because if somebody has a different idea, I'd like to hear that too.
And I'll reach out to Lions Club too. I know they've had a little bit of a shift in who's helping coordinate. They've had some, I think, just health issues. So I'll check in about that too. Typically, they just show up. I actually don't usually hear from them, but this last year, I made it a point of really connecting more with them. I got a couple phone numbers, and so yeah, they were really great this year, and they did talk about just some preferences that they have, and they really like to have the key code for the people who are sheltered. So like I added that into something to make sure that we're still doing for them. That's really helpful for them. So I think that's good. I think that's really all. I mean, we're talking about cutting off a couple concerts, shaving off a couple. But maybe that helps us get more buy-in on getting people to come and help with the events, and maybe that just helps lighten the load a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we got 8 concerts, you need to, volunteer for 2 of them, but
Sure.
maybe we have only 5.
Yeah, maybe it's one.
Yeah. you just
Yeah.
have to- So,
Okay. Let me make sure let's see, check in and make sure I've covered
covered all your
the
list.
questions that I had. Available funds, we've talked about in the future trying to do that. That's not something we need to decide on now, but I know that we had, I think, did I put a cost in there? I took that out, but I will say I didn't have a lot of feedback from all of the cities, but I think we probably generally pay the least amount. There are lots of these, even Monmouth, they said they average between $2,000 and $5,000 concert for the bands that they're having there. So they're having like we're not on that budget.
We're supporting small local bands.
They're a small community though. They're just,
That's
they're under
that's
10,000.
their budget, or that's
Per
Per
concert,
band?
per band.
Holy
Two
cow.
to band. I'm pretty sure that's what they told me. Don't hold me to it if you're watching this one.
Do they have it in that fancy big rest?
They have it in their amphitheater thing that they have. So, I think we're definitely not on that level, and we have had more people interested. But last year we did have a number of people that filled out and then said, "Whoa, what are you talking about?"
Oh.
It's like I try as much as I can to say this is what we pay, but hopefully just being able to increase a little bit next year. There's been like immense inflation when you really think about it.
Sure.
It's 2 hours playing, not including coming and going, for sometimes 4 or 5 people and $200. And I think in the past when this started, you had more people that were playing that just, oh, I can play, I'll play.
Yeah.
That's great. There's a stage, I'll play. Now we're trying to be a little more formalized to make sure they're people who are committing to showing up, committing to playing for 2 hours. So, I think we'll just keep looking at that in the future and how we can try to help.
Well, if we reduce the number of concerts,
That may help as
we
well.
can increase the
Yeah.
amount.
That
There
might
wouldn't be as much cash in it.
Okay, we talked about the schedule, and then is there anything else that anyone wants to brainstorm at this point related to this topic?
Just continue this discussion
Yep, well,
at our next,
yep, and I'll bring back the information that I said I would bring back.
okay?
Okay, great.
We still have a few minutes, or a few things at 6:33. Staff updates, do you have any burning issues that you need to bring up?
I don't, I just, the memorial is still hopefully going to be installed prior to Veterans Day.
So on Veterans Day or on the Saturday?
I don't know. I'm gonna revert to
Yeah,
you
that
if
was-
there's anything you feel like you're in a place to update.
We're
on.
not, Chris and I were meeting and talking about, so it's a collaboration with the Park Advisory Board and also the Inclusivity Committee. So I'm kind of
Okay.
put myself in the middle. Yeah. So the Scots Guard, they give out medals to Vietnam veterans. And Chris said that the program is being phased out, so there's going to be less opportunities for this to happen. And Chris's concern is that having it on the 11th, on Veterans Day, at 11 a.m. is the same time that the Albany Parade starts.
Oh, I
And
see.
there might be a conflict with the Scots Guard folks coming to our event and also making the 11 a.m. parade. So initial conversation was, well, if the Scott Guard is not available on 11, then on the 11th, then maybe looking at the Saturday the 9th or the Sunday the 10th. Right when I was walking out, another thing that we talked about was, what if we did it earlier in the day? It's like, did it at 9 a.m. And then there would be time for them to join our event and then travel to Albany to join the parade. Then there's also Benton County Historical Society has Paul Cochran's uniform and letters that he wrote to his mother. So I'm going to be meeting with them on the 8th to talk about what that would look like. Envisioning it would be a display and people could come and view it and look at it
Or end up at the museum.
at the park. And then Mark, I don't know how to say his last name. He's from the COG. He works for the Benton County Veterans Service Office, and he is willing to table and is available to be there to share about veteran services and that sort of.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm going to reach out to the Philomath High School Choir to see if they can be there to sing the national anthem. Chris and I kind of looked at the tentative schedule that Eric had shown us last month. There was some things that, in cooperation with also the conversation we had at the Inclusivity Committee meeting last week,
And last month.
that there was some things that we felt either could be done in a different way, or cut and removed from there. So there was a few things that Chris and I have discussed that we want to bring to the park board, obviously, and I think he's going to chat with you about kind of adjusting the program to make it a little shorter.
Board, when we had feedback, generally, I think we left it at, this does look like a lot.
Conversations I've had, because I've
So
had two
the
different.
one that we had here was, it does look like there are a lot of things. This sounds great. We would like to try to be there if we're able to. Go team, make a Veterans Day event. That's kind of how the park board left it. So I think the park board just gave general support for having this event. Please let us know when it is so that we can try to
I think
participate.
I'm remembering the longer
Yes,
conversation
it's
that
been-
was in the
It
inclusive
has been back
committee.
and forth. So yes, so I think we're good and we'll just keep you updated.
Yeah.
People at the park that the
Rotary.
like to dedicate.
Yes, that
At
is
that same
still
time,
on
if
the
possible.
agenda, and that is something that I think Chris has prioritized that needs to happen.
And I'm not sure exactly how that's gonna be, but we do have a member who is in the armed forces. And he would know a little bit more probably. So it wouldn't be very long, but
Yep.
we would like to be able to do
Yeah,
that.
that's definitely something Chris and I have wanted to keep in the program, and yeah, great. Absolutely.
When do you anticipate?
Chris said that he's going to try and reach out tomorrow, and if we don't hear from them by, I think he said Thursday, then we're going to keep it on the 11th,
Oh.
at 11 a.m.
Okay.
So he doesn't want to hang it up on the Scots Guard folks, but he and I share that it's an important
Yeah.
element that we would want to
Give it a last
incorporate.
chance to
Yeah.
work out. Okay.
All right.
Other than that, I don't think I have anything park related, except that it's probably already been done, but the exercise equipment at City Park is about to be removed. It's gone. Just so everyone knows.
But
Not-
I'm
and
sorry,
not
what was
to be
that, the banner?
replaced.
We hope to replace in the future. There is not currently money budgeted for it, but it's definitely on our radar to replace it.
It's on the master plan, right?
I don't think it is, because I think it's
Did we
one of,
miss it?
we said here that there was a recommendation for, the city to replace it. So I don't think it's falling off. It's just not on the current master plan, but we know that it's a prioritized project.
What is it?
The exercise equipment that was
yeah,
in the
yeah.
back of City Park, I just wanted to let you know, as park board, if anyone approaches you, it did disappear. We are going to work on trying to replace it. And we have some other things that we're gonna be looking at, just maintenance, things that may need to be removed out of parks. I don't wanna speak about it yet. I just talked to Gary Black today, but more to be announced on that, and we'll hope to try to find a way to replace those things as well.
All right, future discussion items. Probably the music in the park is gonna take up our next meeting also.
Veterans Day event.
Anybody else have anything else?
Don't have anything else.
To add,
Not at this point.
questions?
Are any of you interested in looking at, the Triangle Park? We budgeted for replacing the swing set, getting a dig out. Are any of you interested in having any feedback on like potentially a couple swing set options, and choose the swing set or choose the color? Or look at the layout before
I would.
it goes forward.
My neighborhood park.
Okay. I will put that also as,
What is the address of that park again?
gosh,
Approximately.
On College and 8th.
It's also called
Ish.
Lions Park. I think the Lions built
Oh,
the equipment, the things that are there. Okay,
I kind of know where it is, yeah.
okay.
When's this go?
So the play equipment is just been there for a long time, and the whole area, the area needs to be larger
Oh, okay,
with
yeah.
more play surface, more chips in it. So it needs to be larger. And then the swing set is ready to be replaced, and I think we did put that we wanted to have one of the ADA kind of bucket seats in there. So I think that's going to be in there. And then there are a couple other things, like the roof needs replaced on the little pavilion. I think there needs to be some paint, and if they haven't, it's scheduled for them to extend that fence by the
Right,
basketball
by the basketball court.
court.
Basketballs used to go on the railroad
Yeah.
tracks.
Yep.
I have a quick comment on Mary's River Park. I was glad, very pleased to see that the very teeny pea gravel has been scraped off.
Yep.
Is it going to be replaced with anything, or do you know? Or?
No, but I assume.
And there's a pile of it like next to the pathway, but I don't know what they plan to do with that. But it's much easier to walk now, and I'm sure the wheelchairs are easier to push along that too.
Okay. Good question.
All right, anything else?
Do you have anything else to update on?
I don't think so at
All right.
that point. Yeah.
Our next meeting is on November 5th, which I think is election day.
Oh, is it? I don't know. It's Guy Fawkes Day anyway. So.
And if there's nothing else, I'll adjourn the meeting.
Sitting here looking at our phones.